Planning and, we'll turn it over to our Planning and Public Works Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 items on the agenda. This is our Planning and Public Works Committee, where all members of council gets to participate. I am the chair of this committee, and item number 1 is move for approval of the minutes.
Move to approve. Moved.
Okay, it's been moved and duly seconded. Any deletions or additions?
Commendations to the clerk and her staff.
Thank you.
Thank
All in
you.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 2 is a presentation on development impact fees. Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir. I'm going to give just a really brief presentation on development impact fees, how they work, and really this is an overview of what the statute in the state says that the things that are required if a jurisdiction does choose to adopt one. So first of all, a development impact fee, the purpose of it is it's a means of payment of money imposed as a condition of development approval to pay a proportionate share of the cost of system improvements needed to serve the public utilizing the improvements. The jurisdiction that adopts that has a development impact fee must have a comprehensive plan or a CIP. And in fact, the CIP, a capital improvement plan, is required. The fee that's received from the payor is a fee that's based on actual improvement or reasonable estimate of costs, and the funds must be spent within 3 years or refunded back to the payor. The requirements for adoption by ordinance must include a procedure for processing of all applications, a description of acceptable levels of service, a termination of the impact fee, which is that 3 years that I just described earlier, and there is an annual report of the accounting of the funds every year annually. One note is that to look at is that the impact fees that result in benefits to property owners or developers within the service area other than the fee payer and other than incidental benefits is prohibited. So this is not a developer pay for all of the improvements that may be outlined in the CIP. It's a shared cost. Impact fees must provide the following. It must have the amount of the fee due for each unit of development for which a building permit or a CO is issued. It's got to have an explanation of fee calculation and intended improvements, and it must demonstrate proportionate share of costs with the government entity. The payer has the option to negotiate and contract for facilities or services or appeal pursuant to state law. The ordinance does require a professional engineer or consultant. So if the county council decides to move forward with one, it's a requirement that a third-party consultant assist with this. Through resolution, the council must direct planning commission to conduct studies and recommend a development impact fee ordinance consistent with state law. It's got to have a justification report, and as I said earlier, a capital improvement plan. All the recommendations must include a CIP and impact fees following the same recommendation process as the comp plan. So in other words, this is a planning commission driven. If county council decides to do this, it goes through the planning commission adoption process. The CIP must include a description of all public facilities and deficiencies and an estimate of costs. So there's a lot of data gathering that's required for this because you've got to prove whatever the ask is to the developer, and that cost has got to be very specific. The plan for developing funding resources, an analysis of total capacity and level of usage. That goes back to that data gathering. A description of all land use assumptions, that would be the zoning portion of it. Necessary costs attributable to new development and projected demand, and a schedule for commencing and completing construction of the improvements. That goes back to that 3-year time frame. There are exemptions if a jurisdiction does decide to adopt a development impact fee ordinance. Rebuilding, replacing, or repairing existing structures, additions on any residential units, affordable housing, schools, and volunteer fire departments. Just as a note, in the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan in Chapter 3.9, our priority investment implementation and coordination element, it does call out the use of impact fees as one of the tools to assist the county in offsetting cost of services for development. This is a list of all the jurisdictions that we're aware of that have adopted and developed development impact fee ordinances. There are 6 counties, and the rest are municipalities. In Charleston County, the only municipality that we know has a full development impact fee ordinance is the town of Mount Pleasant. As you're aware, some of the water and sewer providers, they have a version of it for the tap fees, CWS and Mount Pleasant Waterworks. And that's all I have.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, if you can, Mr. Evans, specifically I saw Berkeley County terminated, theirs. Can you give us a little, if possible, background as to why it didn't work there?
I spoke with some of the staff at Berkeley County, and I think there was a dispute with the developer and the county itself about that termination of the impact fee, the 3-year time frame, and I think that it was difficult for the county to overcome, and they had recently adopted a half-cent sales tax, so they decided to let the half-cent sales tax take care of the transportation infrastructure needs rather than, as you can tell probably from what I just went over, it's a very narrow pathway for these development impact fees. You can't take the funds from one area or district and give it to another area or district. It's got to be immediate to where the development is occurring. So, and I'm in discussions with other staff from municipalities that are doing it. It's a little bit difficult to administer. There's a lot of administration to do this, but it works for some, as you can tell by the list that I showed of the jurisdictions that do use it. So it is a tool, and it is helpful to some.
Mr. Chair, as a follow-up, if I may?
Yes.
So for the ones for which it worked, like Mount Pleasant, and it became a very successful use of the tool, they had it from the beginning, so like 1999 or something like that.
Yes,
so,
in my discussions with the town staff, I think as soon as the inception, the enabling legislation that allowed this type of ordinance to come into effect, I believe the town was one of the first ones to start utilizing it. So they benefited over the last 30 years or so, 28 years of development, and they've amended theirs over the years, my understanding, and have sort of honed it to. They've folded it into their system early on.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Boykin?
Mr. Evans, what I'd like to know, and maybe this might be a directive on council's part, I'd like to, is there a way, and Mr. Kyle, if you can weigh in on this perhaps, can we do a cost-benefit analysis to look at what lands remain in unincorporated Charleston County which would fall under this particular impact fee, get an idea of what that growth might potentially look like, and based upon that, what the revenue over the life of this impact fee might raise in revenue, and I guess in the feasibility of it, the cost benefit analysis that, is there going to be enough income that will come in from this to justify the administrative costs and all the work that has to go in the preparation and the maintenance of it?
I think that's a very good question, and that was actually when we met with the other staff in the county, that was one of the first things that we thought of was what is the actual feasibility for Charleston County to utilize this? Because we still have the majority of our land is in the rural areas, and that's where there's not as much development overall in the big picture of Charleston County. So you almost have to have conversations with the other municipalities for this to possibly make sense. I think it'd be, if a consultant was retained, I think that feasibility part of it would be the first thing, should we even do this?
And to your point, that the big three might be in the best position to make use of these impact fees more than rural, unincorporated Charleston County. But if that's something, if it's the will of council to get an answer to that, that would be something I think would be worthwhile.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Mr. Boykin, that's kind of where I was going. This sounds to me a little bit like growing government, based on what Mr. Evans said, the cost and I think you said it was a very difficult program to administer. But even the properties in our rural area are protected by zoning.
Yes, sir.
So to me, if the city of Charleston, North Charleston are not going to do it, then it's got to be a team effort if we're going to do something like this. So I would be interested in the feasibility of it, but I'd also be interested too, before we go hiring consultants and people like that. I mean, I understand the town of Hanahan's got one that works fairly well. Let's talk to other counties that have done it right. We hire consultants all the time, and they bring us a book off the shelf that's 200 pages, and 5 of it's applicable to us. And we don't need to go spend $300,000 to figure that out, in my opinion. So I was happy to see there's a waiver for affordable housing. That was my initial concern too. If you start jacking up prices on development, that's going to just eliminate affordable housing. But I was happy to see that was an issue. But I would tread carefully here. This sounds a lot like growing government to me. Thanks, sir.
All right, Mr. Kabrowski?
Just to be clear, that what we're talking here is impact fees that would only be in the county areas and the unincorporated areas?
Yes, sir.
So this wouldn't impact any municipality then, right?
No, it would only apply to unincorporated Charleston
I
County.
just wanted to make that clear, and pretty much the only unincorporated areas are Mr. Boykin's district and mine, correct? I mean,
There are unincorporated areas in
large areas of unincorporated areas.
We have unincorporated areas.
I'm sorry, I just meant it'd be mostly East Cooper and the lower part of the county then, correct?
Yes, those are the largest rural areas, correct, yes, as a whole.
You said the pro side, what are the downsides of doing it in your opinion?
I haven't dug it deep enough into it. I need to talk to more of the other jurisdictions and counties that have been utilizing it. All I know is what the words are in the enabling legislation, and it does look like there are, and I've really condensed this down. It's about 4 pages long, and it is very specific as to what it is that you are, you got to prove to the applicant that the numbers that you're requiring from them, the funds, meet the report and the ordinance that county council adopts.
Your time, and
Yep.
the report on my preference would be to keep our rural areas rural and buy as much land and put as many easements and put as much land off that can't be developed and keep it rural would be my preference, but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else? So what I don't want to happen is to have our staff and administrator spend a whole lot of time on something that not going to benefit us in the long run. So if it's the consensus of this council by Tuesday, we need to let them know whether to move forward with all this or not, because time is money, and they could be using their valuable time doing something else. And it looks like it's not going to be beneficial to us, because if the big 3 municipalities don't sign off on this, then we only got a small pocket of the unincorporated area. It's just like in North Charleston, we have a small pocket in the city of Charleston and in the town of Mount Pleasant. And so what I don't want to happen is we spend unnecessary funds, and then we come back and say it's not doable, we're not going to work. So if council members would, think about it, and then we can let the administrator know, not to move forward with all this because it's not going to be beneficial to us.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Boykin.
Mr. Evans, your opinion, do you think there's worthy information to be gleaned from more liaisoning with some of our municipalities like the town of Hanahan that would produce more information to give you any further clarity on whether it's prudent to go forward or not?
I think it would be helpful for staff to talk to the staffs of those others, and we can get that information to council through a blue sheet or whatever, to let you know what we have found.
I would like to request that if that works for you,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
maybe
that's
come back to council with any new information or
Yes.
further information.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Gabrowski?
Like to echo Mr. Boykin in the sense that as somebody who's, this would impact my district more in one of the biggest things we face is the development from Mount Pleasant and McClellanville, which is a very bottom point. Everybody that lives East Cooper, to prevent as much development there as we can. I like at least to hear it out, whether this impacts it negatively or positively, because I think you're beginning the discussion. And I don't know enough to know how it impacts that, but it's certainly worthy of hearing about. So thank you. That's just my thoughts on it.
Well, that was for informational purpose only. Thank you, Mr. Evans. So now we're going to move on to item number 3, and I
Chairman,
understand that Mr. Moody
Yeah,
has a
I've
conflict.
got a conflict of interest on file with the clerk.
Who else has a conflict?
I'm sorry. Now, I'm not chairing this meeting, but I would like to say, because I've made the commitment and we've talked about this, so when individuals have conflict of interest on file with the clerk, we need to read what that conflict specifically entails for the record.
You want me to tell?
You can
Yeah,
tell
I
me.
think it'd be best to council member.
There are parties of this transaction who are clients of my employer.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
it.
Mr. Moody, you can excuse yourself until,
Be happy to step.
who else has a conflict? Okay, only Mr. Moody? Mr. Boykin, you want to say something?
I was going to make a motion at the appropriate time, sir.
Well, yeah, before we start discussion, a motion has to be made, so.
I think we have a presentation.
Yeah, okay, you can go ahead with your presentation, sir, and then we'll come back.
Good afternoon. This is the same presentation that was given at the public hearing in December. We have added an update slide that's right here at the beginning, so I'll just kind of get to that slide to begin with. This is a request to rezone TMS numbers 203, parcels 48 and 53 from R4 to PD 190, the Island Park Place Medical Wellness and Medical and Wellness Village Plan Developments. And this is the property information, the acreage, and the council district it's located in. So this is the slide I had mentioned, the application update, just with a timeline of what's happened since the public hearing, and then also with the updated public input numbers there at the bottom in the last bullet. And so just the line items where there was a deferral from the originally planned PPW meeting, and then it was moved to today's date. And then on February 26th, the applicant provided a letter detailing a timeline of the project team's public outreach efforts from the beginning of the project to the present day. And then they also included a map showing a geographic representation of the outreach efforts and a letter of support from MUSC Health, and then the updated public input numbers. And at this time, I can continue the rest of the presentation, which is the same as the one from the public hearing in December, or I can take any questions.
I think everybody's heard this, but I'm looking at on what it says, public input. So you mean to tell me only 2 people were in support of this project when they had letters? I think the first time it was
So-
about almost 80 and 90 people that was in support of this, but it didn't get submitted into the records.
So this last bullet, these numbers are just from between the December 10th public hearing date and February 26th. And then at the very last item, there's some additional input that was received between February 26th and today. So these numbers only reflect what's come in since the public hearing, not what was provided before. The numbers from prior to the public hearing are in the packet.
Do you know what those numbers are?
Yes, sir, there's a slide I can go to here.
Can you
to
show that slide?
Sure. Okay, so So this shows public input from the Planning Commission meeting, so November 18th, then the December 10th public hearing with council. And so it's got the numbers under each date regarding the public input received at that time.
And so no letters or no emails?
It includes everything that we receive, so letters, emails, phone messages, texts.
Chair, can you just have him read these per date so that we can just hear them?
Sure.
At the request of the council member, go ahead, sir.
Sure. So prior to the Planning Commission meeting on November 18th, 2024, 321 comments in opposition were received, 8 comments in support, and 7 general comments. For the December 10th, 2024 public hearing, there were 43 comments in opposition received, 1 general comment received, and then the applicant submitted a digital survey and 2 support petitions. And then to go back to the updated information, yeah, so this next slide shows what that update slide showed as far as between the public hearing on December 10th and today, we received 92 comments in opposition, 2 comments in support, 3 general comments. And then between February 26th and today, 52 comments in opposition, and then 0 comments in support or general comments were received.
Okay, any more discussion or any more questions of this gentleman before we move forward? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Mr. Boykin, you wanted the floor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I would move to deny or disapprove the application.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Second, wait, hold on. I'll get you in a minute. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion from council members? Okay, no discussion from council members. All right, now we can take a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. So the motion is to disapprove. Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Kabrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody? Oh, I'm sorry, he has a conflict. Mr. Pryor?
No.
Mr. Werman?
No.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 6 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 abstention.
All right, so this comes out on Tuesday. It's automatically.
It goes to council on Tuesday.
Council on Tuesday. So to be clear, the motion was to deny. So, and what was the vote
6 in favor
of denial?
of denying,
Okay.
2 in favor of, or 2 against denying,
And one
and 1
conflict.
abstention. Yes, sir.
Conflict. Okay, that concludes our Planning and Public Works Committee meeting.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pryor, we are now moving into our Finance Committee meeting where I am the chair and all members of council are a part of this committee. Item number 1, approval of minutes of the February 18th and 25th.
So moved.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. We have a presentation, transportation sales tax updates at this time. Mr.
Thank you.
Adams. Yes. All these Erics. I was trying to.
Good evening, Chairman Middleton, members of council. My name is Eric Adams. I'm your Public Works Director. Tonight, we'll be giving you a briefing on the roads portion of the transportation sales tax. We're going to start out with kind of an overview of the program broken into our different funding categories. So the first categories, moving from left to right on your slides, are our annual allocation program. That's resurfacing, bike and pedestrian, intersection improvements, rural roads, and local paving. So you can see some of the statistics below, the amount of funding that has been applied to those different categories, the number of projects complete, number active, and some of the statistics. Then moving across the slide, we also have our 2004, what we refer to as our bonded projects. So those are our larger projects that have been completed, and then we'll also focus on our 2016 featured projects. So just some summary of these statistics. You can see them by category. This represents over $1 billion of work that has gone on as part of the roads portion of the transportation sales tax, totaling 55 miles of sidewalk, 16 miles of multi-use path, 12 miles of bike lane. There's also drainage associated with these projects, of any roadway projects. 46 miles of drainage pipe have been installed on these projects. In total, 492,000 tons of asphalt. So if we were to break that down by truck or load of asphalt, that would be about 31,000 trucks. If we could line those up bumper to bumper from downtown Charleston all the way to downtown Columbia full of asphalt. That's how much asphalt's been put down as part of your program. Moving on, we're going to kind of run through these different categories. The first one is what we call our pavement management or our resurfacing program. We're well known in the Southeast as one of the top pavement management programs. We've received 2 national awards in the last 3 years for our program. You can see the amount of roads that we have treated, just under 880 miles. That's about half the roads in the county that we have treated as part of this program. So that doesn't include our CTC program. If you add in our CTC program, you can double that amount. So we basically have touched every road throughout the county. If we look at that amount of roads, we basically resurfaced/treated roads that would stretch from Charleston all the way to New York City. So that gives you some kind of idea of how much we've done with this pavement management program. Moving on to our bike and pedestrian program, you can see 47 completed projects. Want to bring your attention to kind of what we're looking at over the next calendar year. We're anticipating 18 projects that we'll advertise, bike and pedestrian improvement projects. So that's 18 in 2025 with an anticipated value of about $3.1 million. In our intersection projects, we've completed 54 through the life of the program. That's a aerial picture of Sam Rippenberg at Highway 61 in West Ashley. Totaling about $26 million. Now, coming up in this year, we've got 12 projects that we're looking at advertising, totaling about $24 million. So that's going to include Calhoun at Courtney and also the Old Town intersection projects in West Ashley. So a lot of intersection work coming up. Our rural road local paving program, we've completed 74 projects. That totals about 15 miles of earth roads that we have improved throughout primarily rural Charleston County. 74 projects, 74 dirt roads that we have improved. 11 projects we're anticipating coming up this year with an estimated value of $4.4 million. So that's a lot of projects coming up just in our allocation program. We're looking at about 40 projects at a value of $31 million just coming up in this year. I want to quickly kind of touch on our 2004, what we refer to as our bonded projects. You can see the locations here spread throughout Charleston County. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the cash flow of the 2004 sales tax program. So along the bottom axis, your x-axis, we've got our years. So those are our fiscal years from when the program started in 2006. The green line represents the revenue of the program, so the money that has come into the program. The yellow line represents the expenditures, actual expenditures on the project. So not encumbered, not planned. This is money actually going out the door. I've also overlaid for you the projects that were completed. Those are also on a timeline scale, so it kind of gives you an idea of what was going on with projects during this cash flow. So you can see kind of we had a lot of projects going on in construction between that FY9 to FY16. And the reason I want to show this to you is we talk a lot about in the 2016 a pay-as-you-go approach versus a bonded approach. So here you can see we borrowed money 3 times throughout the life of the program. $29 million at the beginning of the program to get started, $90 million in FY08. So if we look at that borrowing there, you can see the gap between the green line and the yellow line raises up. So we end up with a lot of cash on hand. We don't really need that cash in the bank, right, because we're paying interest on that. So it's very critical that we try to time our borrowing with the schedule of the projects. We don't want to borrow too early and have to pay interest on money that we don't need to use immediately. Now, obviously, schedules of these transportation infrastructure projects are very complex. Things are moving around. So anticipating when to borrow based on what's going on in the market. It's very complex, but we must manage the cash flow, right? Our yellow expenditures cannot exceed that green line. So this is a constant thing that we're having to monitor and evaluate. As our bids come in, we don't really know what a project is going to cost until we see what the bids are when they come in. That's the true cost, right? What someone is going to charge you to actually build that project. And you can see even in FY 17-18, we got a little tight there on our cash flow, right? So it's a constant management. Proceeds for this sales tax are projected to continue until June of 2027. The expenditures will continue out beyond that, right? Because we'll have projects that'll continue going. We'll have debt repayment. Now, on these borrowings that we borrowed $261 million, we'll end up paying back about $110 million in debt service, our interest on top of that. So there's a cost to borrow money and bring that money forward. And we want to minimize that cost so that we can do more work with that money versus paying back the interest. So speaking to project delivery, why are these projects so complex? There's different steps. The first step is we have to be eligible for federal funding. We want to be able to bring in that matching money from outside the county. Environmental permitting process, very in-depth here, right? The outside agencies involved. Then we've got design permitting. Utility relocations is a major aspect, moving those water lines, those power lines out of the way. That takes time and coordination. And then, of course, right-of-way acquisition. Very sensitive with right-of-way acquisition. We don't want to have to take anybody's property if we don't have to. And I bring this up to just illustrate that construction is often the shortest component to any transportation infrastructure project. It's often the shortest, but it's definitely the most expensive phase of the project. Here's just to give you some ideas around the environmental permitting process. The primary driver in this process is public involvement. So through all these steps, we're asking the public opinions on the different alternatives. We're revising those alternatives. We're taking those back to the federal agencies for review and ultimately a decision by that federal agency before we can move forward to construction. Here's the different steps, just to give you kind of some idea of how many steps that go into these different, the project management of these types of projects. Now, as we move into, I want to brief you real quickly on our 2016 feature projects. This is a map of their locations. You can see we've got Glen McConnell is widening is complete. That's highlighted in green. 2 underway are Palmetto Commerce Interchange, the interchange on I-26, and then also the Main Road Segment A design build project. I want to be transparent with you on our schedule. So our 2016 projections are shown here in purple, and blue is what we're showing our current projections on the schedule. So these projects have slid back due to various reasons that we're mentioning, the environmental permitting process, the steps that we're going through. This also impacts our cash flow and how we manage. So we're constantly looking at where these projects are in timeline versus where our cash flow is. Here's our cash flow to date on this is just the 2016 sales tax. So you can see, again, the green line is our revenue, the yellow is our expenditures to date. And if you can see, I've put a red dash line. It's kind of hard to see there in that FY25 timeframe. And I've also put projects overlaid. Now, this is just the construction. These projects have been going on in the design and permitting phase since 2016. But you can see what's coming up in construction. I wanted to highlight that because watch that yellow line when we move to FY 26, 27, you see how it exponentially is jumping. That's because we've got so many projects getting ready to go into construction and projected to go into construction. Palmetto Commerce underway, 17 of May, Segment A, the largest project ever undertaken by Charleston County is going underway. We're about to see a lot of movement there, a lot of expenditures going, a lot of building. The James Island intersections are going out for bid. So Savannah Highway, Airport Connector Road, Highway 41 coming up. So we're projecting a lot, and you can hopefully see under the graph there where the yellow line and the green line are getting very close in our projection in FY 27-28. So that means we're projecting we may need to borrow at some point. Now, we've always referred to the 2016 as pay-as-you-go, but it's always been known that borrowing would be anticipated as part of the project, as part of this program. So now I'll run through our projects, our feature projects quickly, just to give you a quick brief on these. Glen McConnell Parkway, $25 million project has been completed. Construction was on time and under budget. We've got Palmetto Commerce Interchange underway. That's a $90 million job. Construction is on time, expected to be complete on February 5th of next year. Main Road Segment A underway, largest infrastructure project ever taken on by Charleston County. Big milestone coming up is March 13th. We'll have our first quarterly project public meeting. Airport Connector Road. This would be a dedicated road to the airport. We're also working to incorporate SCDOT's interchange project as part of the Low Country corridor that they have. So those two projects will be combined. Working with Federal Highway Administration to get a record of decision on that before we can move to right-of-way acquisition. Moving into our James Island intersection projects, first one here is Fort Johnson at Successionville, installation of turn lanes and a signal there. We bid this project twice and received one bidder on each of these bids. That bid was well over estimated budget and what we thought was a reasonable price. So the market right now is a bit tough with contractors being very busy. We've noticed our number of bids have dropped over time. Back in the first program, we would see up to 8 bids on a project. Now on these, we're getting 0 bids on some sidewalks. Nobody's interested. So we're doing things to work on how outreach to contractors, how do we bring more contractors in and get them interested. But it is a market condition right now that we're facing. With this project, our approach is going to be to actually combine it and bid it with the next project, the Camp Road Roundabout project. So these projects are in close proximity to each other. We're going to combine them, bid them together in hopes that we'll attract more bidders and a more competitive price. Hoping those will go out late summer, but sometime this year as we finish up right-of-way on this project. Central Park at Riverland, this project's been before council numerous times. We're continuing to work with the community on this project regarding right-of-way to be very sensitive to any right-of-way acquisitions. We're making good progress on that. We're hopeful to have this one advertised by the end of the year. Folly Road Bike and Ped, this one is actually out for bid right now. The bids will begin later this month on this project. Savannah Highway capacity, this involves 3 intersections, one down in the Avondale area that we're working closely with the city of Charleston on right-of-way acquisition. They are the lead on the right-of-way acquisition in that area. The other 2 intersections are DuPont at Stinson and Wapoo. Those projects we expect to advertise this year for construction. Highway 41 project, we're continuing to work with Army Corps of Engineers. We're in review of our right-of-way plans. Those will then subsequently be submitted back to Army Corps for review. So we're continuing to work through that environmental permitting process. The Highway 78 improvements projects, we have engaged a consultant to work towards more detailed design with the primary focus of this project being on the Ladson Road, College Park, US 78 area shown on the graph here. This is where we see the most congestion and where our tax dollars can get the most benefit in this area by making improvements here. Dorchester Road corridor, we're looking at different areas of this project, our phasing. Area A would tie into a potential project by Dorchester County. Area B is all along Joint Base Charleston, working closely with them on right-of-way acquisition of the federal property there. Then Area C is down more towards Michaud Parkway. So potentially looking at the timing of those may vary depending on the variables on those and how quickly they come to fruition. So we may be able to move with one of the phases quicker, such as Phase C, that would tie in nicely with Airport Connector Road and maybe give us some more immediate benefit in the near future. So we're looking at a phasing option on that potentially. Palmetto Commerce Parkway Phase 3. This is probably our most complex project given the overlap with the clear zone and the runways at the airport, the need to acquire easement and obtain easement from the federal government on their property adjacent to the where our road will kind of loop around the airport there. But we're in close coordination. We meet bi-weekly with Joint Base Charleston, continuing to push this project forward and get those agreements in place. That summarizes all of our projects. I wanted to wrap up with the last slide discussing our RFQ for public outreach, education, and engagement. So the primary points on this RFQ, which would be a advertisement requesting qualifications from vendors that would then submit and be evaluated. Key points would be public perception and research around the TST program, roads program, communicating accomplishments in an easily understandable way, brand and messaging around the program, and then engaging the public in part of the process moving forward. We've been in close coordination with different departments. IT would be involved with this a little bit potentially, but also our Public Information Office is going to take the lead on this initiative with Public Works supporting them with all the data and any statistics and things that would be needed. You should, I believe the clerk has sent you a summary of the scope of work and the evaluation criteria. The procurement department has reviewed, the legal department has reviewed. We are ready to advertise that RFQ. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Adams. Before others say anything, I would certainly like to thank you. I've never heard such a passionate presentation and comprehensive overview of all of the things that we've done, and I would like to give you a round of applause myself.
Thank you.
Yeah. As you walked us through each individual project, many of us, I mean, we've been to ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, whatever the case, and we go through so many of those things that you can't really, capture, every last one of them and then see, the trajectory of the things that we have set in motion, and then as it relates to, the design build process. But thank you. Yes, sir.
So, we're recording this stuff right now, aren't we? The presentation you just made, isn't this being recorded?
Yes, sir.
Would it be feasible to have this put on our website to where, separate from the meeting, a place for transportation sales tax, so folks could actually go look at this for themselves and see? Because I think a lot of the problem is people just don't know.
That's right.
What we did, what we started. And I'd like to see, like, some poster boards on some of the projects that we started and then we completed. When people walk into the PSP building or when they walk in downtown, you can see these things in county buildings. Right now, it's not there. And so, let me ask Ms. Chloe, Facebook page, do we have a Facebook page? Or can we create a Facebook page to put this on so when it says Charleston County, all this stuff pops up and people can look at this? Because I think it's very important for people to know these things every day. And the more they see it, the more it gets into their mind.
Yeah.
So is that something that you can create, a Charleston County Facebook page where only you and staff can post on it? And then, we can get feedback from the citizens?
Yeah, we can get it on, we have a Charleston County government Facebook page. We can get it up there as well as the website. The media has a copy of this presentation
Good.
and we'll do their part, I'm sure, in
Yeah.
spreading the word. So yeah, we'll make sure
But I
it gets
like
up
the
everywhere.
video, Mr. Adams, you did a great job. And if
I
we put
agree.
that up, I think people will see for themselves, because it's a lot of misinformation from, some in the public saying that we hadn't done anything, from 2004 up until now, and that's just not true. So if you don't, have a message, somebody will have a message for you.
That's right.
Thank
We'll do
you.
that, thanks.
Yes, Ms. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Adams, and I echo the chairman's commendations. That was excellent presentation and great, easy, understandable PowerPoint there. So if the clerk could also send the PowerPoint to us, that would be fantastic. I did want to, you mentioned Calhoun and Courtney, and I just want to bring it to the attention of the public. This is where the James Island Connector terminates into downtown.
Yes, ma'am.
And is the plan for that location that the 2 lanes of the James Island Connector will both go down onto Calhoun Street? Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. Moody.
Sure. Mr. Adams, outstanding. Thank you for your work, and I agree, Mr. Pryor, with you wholeheartedly. We've got to go on offense telling the story, because advocacy groups and other people that, you call it misstatements, I call it lies.
I'm trying to be nice.
If they bothered to dig in and find out what these projects are doing, their platform would go away. Mr. Adams, question for you. Glen McConnell Parkway. One of the first votes I took on county council, I think in January, I don't think we need them. January of 17, I think, was to approve the funding for Glen McConnell. We finished last year. It was 7.5 years. And the paving took, 22 months? So 5 years of just nonsense. How do we tighten up that time frame, or can we? And I'm not talking about the public engagement. That's critical. It's huge. But that's a 2-mile stretch, adding 2 lanes. It was no opposition at all. 5 years of garbage. I mean, how do we tighten that time frame up? Or can we?
We're trying every day. If I recall on that one, it was the Church Creek Basin was the drainage with the city of Charleston and permitting and making sure we weren't going to cause any flooding impacts, and that Church Creek Basin was very sensitive on that one. Every project has its own story and its own complications. We could brief you for probably 30 minutes on each one of these projects to tell you kind of what's going on with these, but we continue, I think, the way we minimize is building strong relationships with the different agencies, and we continue to strive to do that, whether that be our federal permitting agencies, state agencies, municipalities. The stronger those relationships can be, the quicker we can move through.
I know you guys are having to check the boxes and go through those motions, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. We had OCRM, DHEC, whoever. It just seems like it goes on and on for even simple projects. So that's just frustrating. I don't know if the change of administration, if that has anything to do with it, if any, those things can be knocked out of the way, not a question for here, but these simple projects like this, we've just got to be able to get through these regulations faster, because that's the problem with the public. They say, where's the money? We're doing it. Look at the timeline. Everything's underway. We're waiting on all this other garbage. So it's really frustrating. But thank you. Outstanding presentation.
Mr. Darby?
I'm just waiting in the morning to speak to one of Clemson's greatest graduates, Mr. Thigpen, so I'll hold my conversation till then, sir.
All right, Mr. Sass?
Mr. Moody, you're absolutely right. The timing, we started on Highway 41 as quickly as we could in 2016, 2017. And all we've been able to do so far is interim improvements. And so, I mean, that's been going on. We've had we've had more meetings probably for that project than any other project we've had. And it's with community neighbors and everything else. It's just been a long haul. And there's a lot of regulations, a lot of hoops that you guys have to jump through. And we appreciate it. But we all want to see it get done. That's what the public wants. They don't want to hear about the labor pains. They want to see the baby. They do.
Thank you. Do we have a possible date for, expected date for when the approval or disapproval of the Army Corps of Engineers on the permit on Highway 41, or is there any expected date, or is it still not known?
This spring.
The project manager's telling me this summer is the estimate. Yeah.
In view of some of the comments today, I think that, I don't think it serves our purpose to insult grassroots organizations. I just want to say from here, I thank the conservation groups, I thank the advocacy groups, and people that live here feel passionately about where we live and our sense of place. They spoke in this. I don't think they spoke because loudly like they did because of a problem in messaging. They can see with their own eyes and what's going on. They love where we live. If we're cautious on our conservation, they see us lose our land every day and see it transform. So I want to say that not everybody feels like that. And I want to thank those who fought to save our land and continue to save our land on a daily basis. They need to be thanked and not insulted. Thank you, sir.
All right, anyone else? Yes? Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Adams, for that update. Item 3, we have 3 resolutions. I would like to take them individually. 3A.
Move for approval.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Item
3B.
3B.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Item 3C.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known. Yes, Ms. Pryor?
I just read some of the resolution. Is this all the information we're going to get, or is it going to tell everything about this gentleman?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Kabrowski?
Mr. Kabrowski, I think you wanted it on there because I think this gentleman did some amazing thing. My historian, Mr. Darby, told me, we were talking today, that this guy did some amazing things, so I looked it up. So I'd like it all to be included in the resolution, if all possible. So we'll get a complete listing of what actually he did. Mr. Darby, can you elaborate what you told me today, sir?
Yes, sir. Lafayette, sir, was a Frenchman who came over to help in the independence of this country with George Washington at his side. And Mr. Lafayette was an advocate of abolitionist, sir. He did not believe in slavery, and he asked Mr. Washington to join him in the freeing of slaves. And Mr. Washington tactfully said, no. There was a joint venture to purchase some land for the two of them, or the colonists, so that slaves would have some place to live in a French colony. And even though Mr. Washington said no, Lafayette took his own funds to purchase land to have slaves free. He was also adamantly against, well, he spoke against slaves who were promised their freedom, who fought along or fought against the British, and when the war was over, they were re-enslaved. So Lafayette was very much an abolitionist, and again, it's always been my contention that, much to the chagrin of some African Americans, that they were always whites who assisted African Americans in that cause. And Lafayette basically stands as one of the greatest. Even Frederick Douglass hailed him as one of the greatest abolitionists of all time. So if the resolution is going to include his love for freedom and his abolition of slavery, definitely, sir. I mean, you can't get any greater than Lafayette other than perhaps John Brown.
Okay, well,
Mr. Chair, I would move to amend my motion to include Mr. Pryor's motion.
Would you?
have a follow, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so the maker of the motion and the second both received that full telling of the story of Lafayette. Thank you all so very much. Mr. Vice Chair Kabrowski?
Do we have a written one yet, or to amend, or is this in formation?
No, sir, it's still in draft.
Right. So oftentimes,
And I also would add that Lafayette arrived in America in Georgetown County, just north of Charleston. And that was part of me, of the historic event of him coming to America. He's intimately involved with our history, a local history, and that's what I wanted to emphasize.
all right, oftentimes when we sponsor resolutions, most times we work through a process, with the clerk and her staff and with others, in county government, with legal for sure, to make certain that, the contents of the words and then also, whatever the historical facts are appropriate as it relates to the individual being making the resolution. So, again, please have some words so that we can read before Tuesday, so council persons might be able to at least give feedback if they wish between now and then.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, please, audience, I mean, no slight against George Washington, because he did free his slaves upon his death. So I don't want people going around here, Darby slamming George Washington. That's not the case, because he did have the compassion to, upon his death, that the slave would be freed.
My purpose was to honor Lafayette, his local connection and his efforts in our freedom, but I'm one, council member, and it should be the collective voice of all of us. I understand that, so I look forward to the writing of it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Let me go back, please, if you all will allow, to Mr. Adams's all-star presentation on the transportation sales tax updates. There was a final slide, the RFQ, and the RFQ, we already took the presentation down, simply was about engagement. It was.
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry.
My apologies, sir.
I'll wait.
No, my apologies, sir. My apology.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was about education and engagement and public outreach. Did not know if we needed to vote on that because, it was just a presentation, or if we wish to have staff further, move forward with that. What is the will of council?
Can we take that up on Tuesday, since we just got this 2 days ago, so give us the weekend to read this?
Yeah, so the clerk is saying and that's what I was telling the administrator, I did not think we needed to vote on it.
You don't need to vote on it. We always issue RFQs first and then bring it back.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salisbury.
All right, so, yeah. So I was having a little sidebar, but I don't want to ever be in error and don't want to be, accused of not honoring things in real time, so I wanted to go back to that. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Ms.
Did
Madam
we vote
Clerk.
on 3C yet? No.
Yes, we voted on 3C.
We just have a
No, we
motion.
just had a motion.
Okay, so Mr. Boykin amended his motion. Mr. Sass received the amendment. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Item 4.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to proudly move for approval of 4A.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay.
Move for approval on 4B and C.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor.
Mr. Chairman?
Let it be known by saying.
Question?
Yes.
On 4C, Mr.
Yes.
Maybe Mr. Tootin or Mr. Thigpen, 4C reminded me of our continuing and ongoing need to identify land for a new landfill. Maybe we can take this up after the meeting, but maybe have some kind of discussion, environmental management committee or sometime, maybe update council about this process. I think we've kicked around maybe trying to find a realtor firm that specializes in this area. We've got to get moving on this because if we lose control and fill up our landfill, we're going to be in big trouble. And this council, too, is going to have tough decisions to make in the future because who's going to raise their hand and say, put a landfill in my backyard? West Ashley did it 50 years ago. Raise their hand. I don't know. But we've got a lot of tough decisions to make about this. Thank you, sir.
Chairman,
We'll add an environmental management committee meeting on
Yes, sir.
on the 20th.
and to Mr. Moody's point, I think that'd be throughout the whole entire county, not just North Charleston, West Ashley, Mount Pleasant. It should be throughout the whole entire county, what works best. Even if it's just a transfer station somewhere.
All options.
Yeah, all options, yes.
All right, thank you so much. Item 5, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Chairman.
That's 4C.
Move for approval on item 5A, please.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Item 5B, the sale of 993 and 995 Morrison. You have received.
Move for approval.
All right. Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Wordman.
Mr. Chairman, so my understanding of what's going on is that we'd be just accepting the offer that's on the table that includes no deed restriction for affordability, which is one of the things that I emphasized personally that I think is important. If our attorney wants to correct me if I'm wrong about that, but that is my understanding of what we're voting on tonight.
Can the clerk, has there been a motion?
Yes.
There has been.
Then can you tell me what the motion?
Accept the City of Charleston's offer to purchase the county-owned property located at 993 and 995 Morrison Drive for $30 million.
Thank you. Yes, sir, that will be correct.
So, thank you, Ms. Ham. So, I listen, I don't have like the actual objection to the direction this is going. And I want to be very clear that I do not think the city is trying to bait and switch us or anything like that. I think that there is a very real commitment on the part of the city and particularly Mayor Cogswell to purchase this and to use it for affordable housing and a substantial amount of it, actually. What I will say is this is proposed to be a $30 million contract. And you cannot predict the future. And in my view, the kind of purpose of the contract is to address things that might come up in the future, even if you don't know that they will. I am concerned about basically doing this without any sort of legal recourse to enforce that commitment. And I don't, say that in any way to disparage the city. In fact, I'm pretty excited if they are able to do this. I just think that based on discussions with the city, I understood there was some willingness to take on that commitment, and I would ask us to do that, but I don't think we can do that while accepting the offer that's currently on the table. So I'm going to have to oppose this for that reason.
All right, roll call vote.
Mr.
Sass, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think that we're talking about an offer the city has made to us, and we want to accept that offer, but we have some concerns, and I think these are viable things that we can discuss with the city before we're willing to sign that contract.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like to maybe, could we amend that, could we amend that motion that we do
Yes.
discuss with the
I'd
city?
accept your amendment.
We want to make sure that, you know, that we have, that there is an affordable component there. And I'm not sure if there's anything else that legal would say that we need to put in there to protect us. But when you're the seller, you do that normally when you're selling a piece of property. So I don't think there's anything unusual here for us to ask that. And I think that would be maybe something that we need to go negotiate with them, what exactly that percentage or what that would look like. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's fine.
I'll accept your amendment.
I'll accept the amendment on my second.
Who made the motion? Mr. Pryor, you accept that?
Yes.
And Mr. Boykin, okay, so Mr. Darby.
Mr. Werman,
Yes, sir.
I really admire your foresight and clairvoyance, sir. I really do, sir. I mean, to think about that, because it brought back memories, sir. Say, for instance, where the aquarium is, when folk used to live over there, the city stated that the land was contaminated and got rid of an entire minority community, just got rid of it, sir, because the land is contaminated. But it wasn't that contaminated to put the aquarium there. Where St. Matthew's Baptist Church was. It has to be torn down because Ravenel Bridge is coming across it. It's circumvented. So they do make changes. And it'd be wonderful if we can put in place that they don't make these egregious changes that's going to hurt the cause of which we fight for, sir. So I appreciate that, sir. You really hit the nail on the head, sir. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Darby. And it sounds like with the amendment, we're actually all on the same page, so maybe I made a bit too much of a stink about it. But nevertheless, I'm glad we can all be on the same page. I do think those are important.
Yes, sir.
As sort of an insurance policy. I don't want to drive around for 5 years waiting on them to get the deal done without any insurance, so.
Sir.
All right, anyone else? Mr.
One
Moody.
quick question, and I agree, I'm going to support this as amended. I appreciate the comments. I want to just make sure, though, as we're moving through this, that it's not going to impact the money offer that's been offered to us as you impair or put other restrictions to property that can impact market value. So that would be a concern of mine, but I am going to support this. I think this is wise. I just don't want the city to come back and go, well, we're going to make it 26 now. That's my concern. Thank you.
You don't have to take.
You can turn it down, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Roll call vote?
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt? Mr. Kabrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Worman?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Chairman Middleton?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Let me also note that in consultation with the clerk, the administrator, and the attorney, a letter will be sent to the mayor of Charleston saying that this council has unanimously voted to accept the unsolicited bid of the city of Charleston for $30 million with the proviso that was stipulated in the amended motion. And so please know that that's going out. When it goes out, it will also go out to all members of council. I want to say that openly and publicly because we will send a letter based on this action tonight.
Will we wait until Tuesday? Do we have to go?
We'll wait until Tuesday, but I'm just saying that as a part of the process. Tuesday. After Tuesday. Right, after the final vote. So I wanted to say that. All right. Item 6A, we have a presentation coming from Ms. Craig.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Mr. Adams, but he is 16 years old. Right? He's good, huh? Mr. Adams, they're talking about you, sir. They said you look like 16.
He's a good softball player.
Really?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I do, but he's good.
Good evening, trustees.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. My name is Angela Craig. I'm the Executive Director of Charleston County Public Library. I've been your Executive Director for the last 6 years. It's been my absolute pleasure. May I please introduce my library trustees that are here in the audience tonight? If the trustees could please stand. We have almost all of them. They were able to come tonight and rearrange their schedules. Not all were able to attend because of the meeting change, but thank you all, trustees. This meeting is to give a brief update to you county council members about the wonderful things we've been able to do in Charleston County in support of our library board and to answer any questions that have arisen over the last few days. To give context, I know that materials reconsiderations and book removals, book bans, whatever you'd like to call it, have been top of mind in many corners. I would like to talk about in fiscal year 24, we circulated 3,339,463 items. That's all in. That's our physical collection, books, DVDs, virtual ebooks, and everything else for fiscal 24. In that fiscal year, we only received 2 official request for reconsideration in 2024. And so that is, from the items circulated, 0.00001% of the actual work that we do. We have been very proactive with our community. We care very much about parental rights and to make sure that we have the safeguards for a collection. Many of us are parents too. I am a parent. And we want to make sure that when a parent comes into any one of our 18 lovely library locations and interacts with our wonderful library team, that they know where to find the books and they feel comfortable in the books that they're able to select. We have had a terminology change. This actually came about because of our new buildings. We no longer use the term young adult. We use the term teen. We have curated recently a middle school collection. I had the privilege of showing, I'm Chairman Middleton, that a few weeks ago. That is actually curated within our teen rooms. The middle grade collection is for ages grades 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We will now move our teen, and we have been moving our teen nonfiction, all teen nonfiction, and interfiling it over into the adult nonfiction. So the teen rooms will have fiction for middle grade and fiction for teens, but the nonfiction, which has biographies, health literacy, and other things that might need perhaps a little bit more parental control, is over now interfiled in the adult nonfiction. Very soon, we are going to have a new youth library card where parents who are parents of children who are 17 and under will be able to have their children opt out and to have a restricted library card where they can only check out children or teen materials and not have access to the adult collection to check out. That doesn't mean that they cannot browse, because you can browse anywhere in the public building, but in order to actually check out the item, their card would have that restriction, and that would be the choice of the parent. I would like to talk briefly about the awards and recognition. There is a packet that we gave you. It is all of our awards and recognition that we have received over the last 6 years. Because of the support of my wonderful trustees, we have been able to secure over $500,000 in grants and awards. We have received the Library Star 5-star rating. We are the only library on this side of the country that has received that. Not even Richland has that. The Community Impact Champion Award, we received that in 2024. And again, we have so many awards that I just printed out for you, and at your leisure, I would love for you to take a look at that. I wanted to give some context around the pledge of office that the library has had since 1976. This pledge was written, and we were actually discussing it, maybe perhaps because of the anniversary in 1776, and so they wrote something in 1976. But this was a pledge. It is a ceremonial pledge. It was written by that board, over 40 years ago, and it was used ceremonially. Didn't mean that you actually had to take it as a trustee member, but this is the pledge that many trustees did before that they actually became trustees and took their office. You, of course, appoint the trustees. This was just ceremonial. It was something that I think was team building for the trustees. That was not written in 2025. There was something that was said that this was something recently written by this current board. This board did not write this. This was written in 1976. Also with you, you have our impact report. Again, this is fiscal 24, but in the last 6 years that I've been director, my wonderful library board that is seated right here, they have been very supportive in helping with literacy, workforce development, educational success. We have been able to help many of our patrons in our rural, suburban, and urban areas. We have 18 wonderful library locations. We have almost 400 staff members, and we have grown exponentially in every metric that we have through the state library and also what we measure internally. I've shared that with you as well. I would like to turn over for some remarks from my board chair, Rob Byko, to give some context also from the board perspective. Thank you.
If it's okay, I'll make my comments from here if this mic's on. Thank you all for having us here this evening and for giving us and affording us this opportunity to come and speak with you tonight about the topics of current events. I want to mirror Angela's comments and just repeat that the Charleston County Public Library Board is made up of trustees, members who are dedicated, group of volunteers that are Charleston County residents. They are citizens of this country. They are your friends, they are your neighbors, they are your constituents. Larry, you and I are neighbors on Sullivan's Island. We talk regularly throughout the year. I know many of our trustees have spoken individually with each of you on projects that are going on in your neck of the woods and developing those relationships and making sure that we as a board are properly representing your constituents. And we're here always to listen to you in providing us guidance on ways that we best can move ahead and serve you and serve the community. The recent criticism of the library board I feel, does not reflect the dedication of these individuals, who include a former circuit court judge, a retired school teacher, public servants, and community volunteers. CCPL's board members, as we mentioned, are appointed by you. We answer to you. We seek guidance from you on all that we do. So we ask for County Council's direction as this point of conversation has come up regarding the requirement to take an oath of office. We mentioned the oath. That has also been on front page Post and Courier. It is implied that this board or any recent board wrote that oath. It is not. That board was written when I was a freshman in high school in 1976. It was written when Senator Lieber, I believe, was 3 years old at the time. So this is a process, a long-held, respected process that this board and all previous boards have followed in onboarding new members, and at the opening of a new term, those members are asked to recite the pledge that was written in 1976. That was the process. That's how it has been up until this year. We've had 3 new board members and a returning board member brought on this year. One of those individuals with ties to Senator Lieber brought up the idea of possibly doing an oath to the state constitution. All of us, we love America, we love the state, we'd love to take an oath. I, as board chair, and our executive team, we looked at each other, we said, wait a second, this is a change of policy that had been ongoing for 48 years. This isn't in our lane. And we asked, when it came up at the January board meeting, we took a vote as a board. We said, let's send this up to county legal and get their opinion as to how to manage this. How do we manage and facilitate this change? County legal came back with a letter instructing us that there was no obligation to take an oath. We took that to heart and continued on with our point of business. The one board member that was appointed to the board as a private citizen, as any of us as private citizens can do, appealed and asked his former client to appeal to the Attorney General to ask for a review of the status of that. That review came back at our February meeting. It was called to our attention. It didn't change what we as a board voted on in terms of seeking, once again, county council input and guidance. This was a decision that would have to be made respective of and respectful of your position as the overseer of our board, as well as many other boards, over 40, I'm told, in the county. And the last thing I, as a board chair, wanted to do was step out of my lane in front of yours and say, hey, we're going to change things up. We're going to do things our way, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. I needed your input on this and guidance on this. So that's what we voted on. That's what we pursued. To my knowledge, the majority of library boards in the state do not take an oath to the Constitution of this state or any oath. It does, nor does any county-appointed boards like the Greenbelt Board or the Parks Commission. They're not required to take an oath to the Constitution, as far as I understand. Why then has this library, out of all the county libraries in the state, why has this library board been held up to such ridicule and vehement language, villainizing our board members, your neighbors, your constituents, villainizing them in the press? There's been a front page piece in Post and Courier for the past 2 days now that has gone up there with no response from our board or the county, and we feel that we've remained silent because it's not really our fight to make. When we have been singled out by a single state senator who has called me out on the legislation floor, he has misquoted several board members in the press, and without any opportunity to respond or have the same size megaphone that they have. Our board remains truly focused on what matters, and that is ensuring that CCPL is the best library in the state, in the region, in the country. We have done nothing. I've served the board since 2018. 2 years as a board member, 2 years as vice chair, and the last 2 years as board chair. In that time, you guys have mentioned the time it takes from the passage of acquiring money and the time that you can prove to your constituents that performance has occurred. Well, in the 10 years since the referendum passed, thank you to Mr. Smalls and his group in his execution on the construction of those new libraries. But at the end of the day, it's this board that has overseen the design, implementation of those construction projects. We don't sign contracts. You do. We don't have authority over budgets. You do. We can recommend after auditing what the library budgets are to you, but ultimately, we don't sign contracts. It's against our bylaws to do so. That was falsely quoted in the press and on the legislation floor, allegedly that we oversee a $40 million budget. That is wrong. We are here to do your work largely anonymously up until yesterday. We work in the background. We have had tremendous wins. We have had patrons, employees, some of the highest praise from patrons and employees who love their work at the library. And all we really are after is some guidance from you all. I would also like to invite Vic Rawl, Judge Rawl, to come up and just say a few words. If there is time, I would also deeply appreciate for those board members that would like to have the opportunity to just say a few words, to introduce themselves, to reintroduce themselves to you all, and put some names and faces to the anonymous
Mr.
criticism
Bico,
that we're receiving. Thank you.
Whereas we do appreciate that, we're not going to restrict, but we're not going to have time for every board member to come up. They've been calling us individually, collectively. We've appointed and voted on all of you to be on the board. So I think from that perspective, we know many of you, most of you, through that association, and certainly support the library board. Judge Rawl, who's also former chair of Charleston County Council and former county council person, please come and say whatever it is that you have to say. And county council persons, if we would indulge Judge Rawl just for a minute, and then we'll come to council.
I would like for them to stand up individually and give me their names.
Yes.
So we can put a face with a name
All right.
Now?
before the judge speaks.
All right.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Melanie Collins. I've been on the board since 2018, 2017.
Hello, my name's Kyle Woodman. I've been on the board for 4.5 years now. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Belinda Gargle. I've been on the board for 3 years, and thank you for your service.
My name is Louise Allen. I'm the secretary of the executive board for Charleston County. I'm a native South Carolinian, and I've lived in Charleston since 1971. I'm a public school teacher, public school employee, and a public servant, just like my father was. It runs deeply in our family, and I'm committed to the library.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Council. My name is Matt Brady, and I've been on the board for about 2 months, so all new to me.
What's next?
And I think you've met Chairman Bico, and I think, well, I'm Victor Rawl. Obviously, I'm on the board. This is, I believe, the beginning of my 5th year on the board. I don't have much to add from what the chairman said, except a few things. In the first place, the ordinance and the statute clearly state what the duties and responsibilities and expectations a board person has to have. It is extremely important for any board and commission in Charleston County, or for that matter, the state of South Carolina, follows the guidance they're given on the board they're appointed to. If a board member comes in with collateral ideas, concepts, etc., the chairman, the executive director, and other board members are obligated to explain to that board member that this is not within the context of what we do, or it is. Some of us advised our new board member that the appropriate route to take the information that he was concerned about was to Charleston County Council. I have stated 1,000,000 times that if the state statute says I am to take an oath as a library board member, if Charleston County says that, or of course if a judge orders that, glad to take it. By the way, I've taken this oath 11 times at least already. How many times do you need to take an oath before you're qualified to serve? That's all I really have to say. I have no idea what the agenda is, but the bottom line is the board does not need individual agendas for whatever purpose that's not associated with or productive for the Charleston County Library. Thank you very much.
Ms. Craig, are you done?
Are there any questions from council?
Specifically questions.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ms. Craig. Certainly, Library Journal, Star Library Rating, Community Impact Champion Award, national recognition for community impact, national recognition for food literacy and access services, local recognition for best Best Charleston over $972,354 plus in grant awards. Our Charleston County Public Library is one of distinction, and so we celebrate all of your achievements. At this time, council members, Mr. Boykin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, Chairman Vico, Director Craig, members of the library board, I want to say for myself, you have my full faith, trust, and confidence. Thank you for your service. I'm sorry that you have been maligned unjustly. And with that, I'd like to have a brief statement and make a motion. No other library board in the entirety of this state takes the oath. 46 counties in this state, none of them take it. While this council is not opposed to anyone taking the oath of office, this council will not step in the shoes of the General Assembly or a court regarding this matter. As such, I make a motion that we do not direct our library board members to take the oath of office and leave this in the hands of the General Assembly. That's my motion, sir.
All right, it's been properly moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded? All right, any
I'd like to
discussion? Mr. Moody.
I was going to validate Mr. Boykin's comments, maybe Ms. Ham or Mr. Tootin. Are there any other, can you confirm that there are no other county boards, commissions require their boards and commissions to take an oath?
Yes, sir. I can confirm that through several different pathways. Both Ms. Salisbury reached out to some of her colleagues to check from a clerk perspective. I reached out to some of my colleagues with regards to county attorneys' perspectives, and also Executive Director Craig reached out to confirm some of the counties that we thought may have done this, to confirm that they had not. And so we have confirmed that there's no board in the state that takes the oath.
Well, what makes us so special? Is it your opinion that this is a state legislative fix, if this is where this stuff came from, that it's a fix by the state legislature?
I agree that is a proper pathway.
Has any legislation, to your knowledge, been filed?
To my knowledge, no, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Orman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the members of the board for your service, for helping to build and steward a award-winning library system. Doing so at a time where your service is subject to a lot of scrutiny. And I think some of that comes with the job, but it's honorable that y'all are willing to step up and do that job. I'll say I think loyalty to the Constitution is not a controversial idea. I don't think we've heard categorical refusals to do it tonight. In fact, I've talked with a number of folks and have not heard anything remotely approaching that. Legal said it's not an obligation. It's doing the same way we've done business for 50 years and more, and the way everyone else in the state has done business. I don't see any real reason to change that. And quite frankly, as Judge Rawls stated wisely, I think, I don't really know what the agenda is. While the Constitution is not controversial, I do have to say I don't understand why this is coming up. I mean, the question of what makes this special, I just don't fully understand that we're not going to be, for instance, the idea that this might affect the legitimacy of board actions. Well, I'm not willing to just unwind, potentially, the validity of board actions over the last however many years without, I don't know, some further reason for doing so, or even invite those questions. So I just, I don't really have any issue if the state wants to mandate it, but I don't think that we need to feed some idea that it was previously mandated, because that seems like a slippery slope to go down.
Thank you so much. Mr. Vice Chair Kabrowski.
I'd just like to say that what concerns me tonight is we had a de facto public hearing on this issue without a notice for a public hearing. And we've heard one side of this, and it concerns me greatly that the public library is owned and and consumers from all over the county. And we've held tonight literally a public hearing without notice of a public hearing and hearing from one perspective. And the elephant in the room that nobody's mentioned today, to me, the issue is very narrow. We're not here to debate the existence of the library board or whether they're good people or not. And it was very carefully orchestrated to distract. We have the chief law enforcement officer or legal officer in the state. The Attorney General has issued a legal opinion, and it says very unambiguously, members of the Charleston County Public Library Board of Trustees are officers within the meaning of Article 6, Section 4 of the South Carolina Constitution. They are therefore required to take the oath of office prescribed in Article 6, Section 5 of the South Carolina Constitution. That was the opinion of the Attorney General of our state, issued on February 13, 2025. Personal attacks on other board members that aren't here, and I can assure you, whatever vehemence and responses you got, he got equal responses from people that agree with you, as has Senator Lieber and the others. So it's not what we're, in a sense, dealing with here is the reality is the introduction of a diversity of opinion into the county library board that hasn't existed for a long time. And now you have conservatives on there that weren't on there before, in my opinion, and you're dealing with diversity in a way that shows, I heard name calling and disparagement of people that you disagree with. And I don't know how that is helpful. We're here because of what the Attorney General wrote. That's how I see this. And I see that, and I'm making an analogy to the Isle of Palms had farmed out their taxing authority, their parking taxes and their penalties for taxes. And they had unanimously went one way. They got an Attorney General's opinion that said you can't do that anymore. And what they did is the town of Isle of Palms stopped the policy that they had. And I respect the members. I don't have any personal disagreements. I am a neighbor. I hope cordial relations on an individual basis. But I don't think it's helpful to disparage others that disagree with you who have got just as much heat as you have. But I didn't see the article in the paper the same way. I was there at the first meeting, and I honestly did hear two board members, now that you mentioned it and raised it, who said that they wouldn't want to take the oath of the Constitution, and they spoke disparagingly of it. I heard that myself. That wasn't fantasy. So I just think getting disparaging others, and I'm here because we have an Attorney General's opinion that is clear and unambiguous. And it's not to say somebody's bad because they didn't take the oath for many years. I agree. It wasn't, we had no public notice that it was required. Now we do, from the chief law enforcement officer of the state, as high as you can go. And I've heard members of this council talk when it came to the Historic Preservation Commission from our attorney and others, because you had Attorney General's opinion that said something, oh, we had to follow that, we can't do anything different. But now when it's something that they don't want to do, they said we can ignore it. So I'm here today to say that we have it, and I heard others say, what's the problem? If our Attorney General says it has to be done, to me, it's unambiguous, and that's what we're here today. And I don't see why it would be a problem that any American wouldn't be proud that give an oath to the Constitution when our chief legal officer of the state says it's a requirement. I mean, it's very unambiguous.
All right, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Boykin, and then Ms. Honeycutt.
Mr. Kabrowski, it's his opinion, it's not law. Okay, I mean, if he came up with something today and say, it is my opinion that, certain people can't live in this state, that's not a law, that's his opinion. This has to be litigated by the courts or either the General Assembly. Now, you mentioned the Isle of Palms, but, even though he gave his opinion, it took a judge, I believe, to enforce what they wanted to enforce, correct?
That was not my, if I stand corrected if I'm wrong.
Mr. Pryor, and then Mr.
So
Boykin, and then Ms. Honeycutt.
Yeah, my intention is he gave his opinion, and he's given his opinion on a lot of things here in Charleston County since I've been here, and council have, moved in different direction until somebody from the General Assembly, a judge says so. So, if his opinion matter, then why would the senator be trying to file a bill to make this statewide? It looks like to me, Charleston County is being used as the guinea pig. If it passes here in Charleston County, that gives an effort to say, well, we did it in Charleston County, let's do it in the other 45. We under home rule. So each 46 county has to be treated the same. So to make special rules for Charleston County, that goes against home rule. And I think the senator is smart enough, he realizes that and he knows that. And that's why it was shifted to us. I believe, this is my belief. But I don't think this was a hill to die on for either one of us. You know, I think if somebody wants to have the state legislature pass something to say statewide it's got to be done, I'm all in. I'm not against citing the Constitution. I've done it several times. But forcing it on somebody else when it's not needed for over 50 years, I say we ought to fire them. I'm just not willing to do that right now. But if a judge comes with a declaratory judgment and says y'all are wrong, I'd be the first to say, okay, let's start taking these oaths. And that would be every appointed office in Charleston County, not just the library board, sir.
Mr. Boykin?
Mr. Pryor, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's an opinion. It's not the law. It won't be the law till a court decides so, or the General Assembly fixes it and makes it clear. One of the things that I want to bring up is the legal principle of desuetude or desuetude, where if this has been the law and it turns out it is the law, it's been ignored for 50 years that no county in all 46 have abided by, and the General Assembly nor the Attorney General has enforced it, which the principle of that is if you don't enforce it, it becomes unenforceable and obsolete. So at best, there's that argument. But I agree, this is not our mess to clean up. They need to take care of it at the state level, and when we get proper authority from them, then I'm ready to act on it, and we'll do whatever they tell us to do.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Yes. I too approach this maybe a little differently. I found out through social media that there was this speech going on the Senate floor, and quickly tuned in to figure out what was happening, and immediately texted Senator Lieber to say, hey, what's going on? Do we need to pass a law? Do we need, like, what's the angle here? And, you know, he responded, everybody's supposed to do this. There's an AG opinion, to which at that point I hadn't read it, so I did. And one of the major concerns I have with this is that the county and I have always observed what or how the AG interprets something. And the AG is not always right, but in this sense, I mean, it would be my preference to move to go ahead and order not just the library, but all of our boards to take the oath. If truly that is the interpretation of the law of this state, and that's what it has been, and we would anticipate a court would rule that way, then that's what we should do. My concern is this is not just Charleston County. Mr. Lieber, I mentioned to him that he represents Dorchester and Colleton, and they don't do it, and why is Charleston being targeted? I'm just unclear on, and I think I even used the term angle. What's the angle? And he said, oh no, I'll make them do it too when this dies down, which also concerned me, because I'm like, well, it's an all or nothing. Either it's the law and we all have to follow it in every county for every board who's considered a constitutional officer, or we don't. And Senator Lieber, in his letter to county council, also cited a state law that allows a citizen to bring a complaint to the Attorney General to challenge the legitimacy of actions taken by boards who have not conformed with the constitutional obligations, that is to say, taking the oath. This issue is way bigger than just, and I respect each of you greatly, but the little Charleston County Library Board. This is a statewide issue. So my second action today was to reach out again to Senator Lieber and all those he copied on the email to County Council, which included the Governor's office, the Attorney General's office, all of my fellow council members, to state my opinion, because this is deeply troubling. If we have not been doing something, at least that now the Attorney General, for the first time on February 13th, opines needs to be done. And we should get some clarification. But the concern I have with Charleston County not acting is that the legislation enabling library boards is very clear. Counties are given that responsibility. Library boards are run by counties. That's how the state legislature set it up, and we want to make sure that we maintain that authority as long as the state wants us to do that. And therefore, again, I will not be supporting this motion because it's my opinion that we follow the opinion of the Attorney General in this case and require all of our boards and commissions, to the extent state law can be interpreted that way, to take the oath of office. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. I wanted to at least, is there anyone else that wished to say anything on this? I wanted to at least note the fact that this was a matter that we had to address because Mr. Biko contacted me personally and asked what direction the library board should take as it relates to this matter based on the firestorm that happened the last couple of days. Ms. Craig met with me on yesterday along with the administrative clerk and the attorney, and so based on the time frame given, based on the Freedom of Information Act, we placed this on the agenda for today for the world to know that this particular matter would be on County Council agenda tonight at this time. And so we had a presentation coming from Ms. Craig that we asked her to give, which then, is not a public hearing on the matter, but, this has been in the paper, in the news, on the Senate floor in Columbia. And so it has been litigated on social media in the public without us even giving a perspective on the matter. I heard Mr. Biko say in his comments, just as the chair, not in a hearing, but just as the chair of the library board, that they have remained silent, waiting for direction from us. And so when looking at the need to come here today in order to provide some direction to a board that is under our authority, it is appropriate. We publicly noticed it in the amount of time that is required through the Freedom of Information Act. Every council person knew that this agenda item was on the agenda today. Many of us have talked to library board members all week long. And so this is not a matter, in my opinion, that has not been properly noticed, that we're having a public hearing on. Anybody who wished to be here tonight, the public notice duly went out so that they could come and at least be present for our conversation on this matter. And as we have given other library board members the opportunity to at least get up and say their name, and some even took extra liberty, my good friend Louise Allen, and said a few extra things. And so apparently we did not restrict anybody in their freedom, because we honor each of them in their service and appreciate what they're doing on our behalf in the county. And so tonight I simply say that when we make certain types of statements, I want to be certain that we have followed the Freedom of Information Act and the proper process in which to have this on the agenda tonight. Now, at this time, we're going to go to a roll call vote per council person. Let's please read the motion again.
Okay. The motion is not to have the library board take the oath of office and leave this in the hands of the General Assembly. Mr. Boykett?
Aye.
Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
Nay.
Mr. Kabrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Moody? Aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Chairman Middleton?
Aye.
The motion passes with 7 ayes and 2 nays.
All right. Good night.
Robert, come on. Good evening.